Hello, everybody. This is Bill. Welcome you back to another installment of Billboard Comics. This is a sub-feature of the channel that I like to call Girlfriend's Guide to Comic Books. And it's not just for girlfriends, it's for any significant other. It's the guide for the people who love comics. This week, I will be talking about another thing that kind of throws off uh, people who are on the outside or novices about the comic book industry. It's called reprints. Um, Now, I already did a feature on variants, and you might think this is the same thing. It is and it isn't. Variants are usually stuff that come out the same week as the comic book. Reprints could be issued years later, decades later, even. Could you know be put out by celebrate an anniversary or a part of a uh, a reprint series, if you will. I'm going to talk about two very specific types of reprints here. There might be other ones out there. If somebody out there thinks of something that I missed, please put it in the comments and let me know, and I will try to get a discussion going in there about them. But the two main reprints are reprints that are just happen like either in reprint series or in facsimiles, or there's also the second printing and third printings of books. First, we're going to talk about the regular, everyday, ordinary reprints. Back in the 70s when I was growing up, it was very popular for Marvel to have a whole bunch of series that were dedicated only and exclusively to reprints. The most famous of these was Marvel Tales, which reprinted the stories from Amazing Spider-Man. But they also had other ones there. They had Marvel Spectacular, which reprinted stories of the Hulk. They had Marvel Superheroes, Marvel Spectacular had Thor. Marvel Superheroes had Hulk and Submariner, and then Hulk alone. Then there's Marvel Triple Action, which reprinted Avengers stories, and Marvel's Greatest Comics reprinted Fantastic Four. Marvel Adventure reprinted Daredevil. Fantasy Masterpiece reprinted Silver Surfer. Amazing Adventures reprinted early issues of the X-Men. So their exclusive point was just to reprint the older stories from there. Most of the stories were only 10 years old at the time, but if you're a young kid who was just 10 years old yourself, you probably A, never saw these stories before in your life, or B, wouldn't be able to find them if you wanted to get into them. So this is an easy way for new collectors to hear about all the old stories that are being referenced in the comic books they're reading currently. It provides a sense of history for the comic books and for the comic book reader, and allow them to actually follow through on the collecting of the issues. A lot of these series didn't really last. Marvel Tales lasted for hundreds of issues. That's the exception to the rule. I think Fantasy Masterpieces didn't even last long enough to reprint all this Silver Surfer comics. I always kind of I had a mixed feeling about that. I never usually went to when I could collect them because I just figured one day I'd try to get the real issues, and again reprints would be kind of counterproductive. But some people did get them and liked them and clicked them exclusively. You should ask your significant other what their feeling is towards this. They might need to complete a whole set of Marvel Tales, and you could help them with that. Marvel also had in the 80s a special series of Baxter paper reprint. They called them their special editions. It's for certain titles. Like Moon Knight got a special edition. Giant Size X-Men was reprinted in a special edition. Doctor Strange had a special edition. I think Spider-Man had one. These were the same principle as the other, the older series from the 70s, but they were done for the special storylines or stuff like this on brighter paper with better publishing and better production values. that was basically the main Marvel reprints from like the 1970s, 1980s. DC also used to reprint their older stories quite regularly, but they usually do it in a like there are 80-page giant or 100-page giant formats. Those would be like all there wouldn't be like one story in it. There'd be like 3 or 4 stories in it, including one new one, and there'd be Golden Age and there'd be Silver Age and there'd be all kinds of stuff wrapped up together into one bundle. Um, and then they also had like their digest forms. I used to love the digest when I was a kid. They're tiny little ones about books about this big, flip through, and it had a bunch of like reprints in it. Sometimes it's devoted to um, one character, like Batman or Superman, um, like or a title like say Funny Stuff or um, JSA, Justice Society of America. And every year they'd have like the best of series, which they collect the best individual issues of the year into one convenient digest size. These came out when I was a kid, and like they're a nice compact format that I could like take wherever I wanted to go and read a whole bunch of great stories. I really dug that one. Um, uh, Reprints usually went off like golf style for the most part. Um, After the 1980s. In the 90s, they didn't really have many reprint series. I think Marvel Tales kept going into it for a little bit, but most of the reprint series like went by the wayside. They weren't concerned with putting out new comics with new number ones and new cover features and stuff like that to actually try to get people in. Um, of late, these kind of reprints have come back into fashion of sort in the facsimile aspects. These are individual issues of important key issues that are reprinted pretty much exactly as they appeared when they first hit the stands back in the 60s or 70s or whenever the story first appeared. Um, uh, then you have like the what's called the second printing. Sometimes if a comic book is extremely popular, the first printing will sell out. And if the demand is big enough, they go through a second printing or a third printing or fourth printing, or if you're the Killing Joke, 14 printings. Um, yes, 14 printings of one book. So, um, but usually this would come out like maybe a week or two or a month or two after the original comic book came out. Just or even like when the second, like if there's a miniseries, this when the second issue came out. Um, So it kind of a way for customers who may have missed out on the first printing to catch up with the story before like they picked up the second issue or the third issue or whatever. Um, some of these can be quite expensive. There's certain demand for it, um, especially for like if it goes to the later printings like third printing or fourth printing, because with each individual printing, like the print run went down and down and down, so the amount of copies printed became lower and lower. For an example of this, I'll give you Incredible Hulk, number 377. This is the first appearance of the Professor Hulk. As you might know, it was made famous by Mark Ruffalo in Avengers Endgame. Um, it the first printing of it is him with uh, I believe a black figure against a green background, a lime green background. This will set you back $15 if you want to get this in mint, according to Key Collector. Um, then they came out with a second printing because they're so popular, and they reversed the colors. Like Hulk figure was in the lime green, the background was black, and with gold paint on the logo. This one will set you back $30. However, the third printing, which is the lesser amount of copies of all three, um, which had a Black Hulk against a like more of an olive green or lime green background, this will set you back $315. That's quite of a leap, but that's because not many people Marvel didn't really publish that many copies of that third printing. By the time like it ran around, demand for it was low, so they didn't really print out much to actually to cover the demand. Um, so you have to look out for that. Um, But I'm sure the question you're asking everybody in your mind right now is, what's going on with my hair? Second question might be, how can you tell the reprints from one from another? Um, well, first of all, like sometimes it's hard to do. Sometimes, like especially with now the facsimile is looking exactly like the ones that originally published, and especially if they go into the later years, um, it it might get like a little bit hard to determine between the two. One good thing is to look at price. Um, the original issue of Action Comics #1 cost 10 cents to buy on the newsstand. The any facsimile that's published nowadays would cost either $4 or $5. If you see a copy of Action Comics for $4 or $5 being sold online for $2 million, run away from that auction as quickly as you can, because either A, that guy doesn't know what the heck he's doing, or B, he's trying to like pull one over on somebody and try to get something like that. Another way to do that is, you know, sometimes like the um, different reprints have different covers. Uh, like they did a reprint of uh, they reprinted the first appearance of Punisher in Marvel Tales twice. The first one was basically it's the exact same cover as Amazing Spider-Man 129, only the background was red, not yellow. So if you see like somebody selling a first appearance of the Punisher for hundreds of dollars online with a red background, that's the reprint. The reprint, according to Key Collector, goes for about $55. I don't know if it's really that much, um, but that's what they say it is. You shouldn't be paying more than $60 for a copy of that book. And if somebody has it on there for hundreds or thousands of dollars, either they don't know the copy they have, or they're trying to pull something over a more novice eyes. Um, for sometimes they change the entire cover over. The second appearance of the Punisher in Marvel Tales, the reprinting of his first appearance, had an entirely different cover. It was a black cover uh, with a new Mike Zeck drawing on it of the Punisher, who Mike Zeck was known for the Punisher at the time. So it was, you know, kind of a new updating. The format was different. The staging of the comic book was different, and the character placement was different, and their poses were different. So you wouldn't get confused between that one and the original at all. Um, um, One true way to find out, especially if like they have the same thing like this, and especially with like second printings and third printings and fourth printings, which came out a couple months afterwards, is look at the indicia. You should have to crack open the comic book to look at this. But if you look in there, they have like the whole publishing information. You just have the title, number, but in the whole summary, either at the beginning or at the end, it'll say second printing or third printing or fourth printing or something along those lines. Uh, that's a good way to determine which printing you actually have. Um, you could also look at like sometimes like the later printings have better print quality or different print quality than the original. Um, Back in the 70s and 80s, Nestle came out with a couple of reprints for Action Comics #1. Um, this was kind of like a twist on this because their copies were even worse condition than the original. Um, the original had the typical comic book glossy cover and like the more newsprinty pages inside. The Nestle reprints were all newsprint. The cover and everything like that. It's a more muted color scheme on the front, so you could tell way different. Immediately, that was different from that. Um, but however, some of the facsimiles have better print quality. The Marvel Special Editions are marked Marvel Special Editions on there, but they are on thicker stock paper, brighter paper. Um, if you could look at like just an eyeball, just see like, okay, well, this looks like something that was printed by on a modern press. It seems more professional, more sleek, more modern. It's probably a reprint and not the original. Also, some comic books did have usually put a number on the printing. This is especially true with the Superman 75, the Death of Superman issue. It had went back to the press 4 times, and each different printing had like a little thing in right where the price is, a Roman numeral that tell what printing it was, 2, 3, or 4. This way we could tell which printing you actually had. Um, Other ways they did is like DC did with the um, changed the color of the logo on its every printing. Each printing has a different color uh, in the actual trade dress, where it says "Killing Joke." One is green, one is orange, one is red, one is yellow, and they all stand for a different printing. So you'll be able to tell which one is different and which one is you have, and which one somebody like, and which one whether or not it's the original or not before you buy it. Be on the lookout for it. I think the original is actually a green color, but I'll put it up here on the screen to let you know that. Um, Also, another things though, they might actually change the cover just a little bit to make it different. This is especially true of the um, recent line of Marvel True Believers. These are the cheap versions of reprint comics that they came out with a couple of years ago. Basically, they had in big bold letters a banner on top of the comic book, True Believers. Um, and they used to have like the same cover of the comic book down below, but they might have said something like different, like if they were reprinting like the um, first appearance of Wolverine, they'd have Hulk and Wolverine on there instead of like the Incredible Hulk uh, logo, just to differentiate it from the original. Um, these are all easy to keep a track of. It's not really that hard to actually figure out that, but it could be kind of confusing. But you also have to be like, but if you're looking for somebody like to buy somebody who might want um, a copy of Action Comics #1, um, well, and if you're in a position to buy it from, can I have your number? Um, Second of all, um, you need to be on a lookout to make sure that some of these things don't go through. I recently saw a video from Bryce Comics, and he talked about an auction. I guess it was somebody from Goodwill. They had two comics on there, um, Detective Comics #27 and Action Comics #1, um, that somebody paid $5,000 for. Thinking they got the deal of the century because they got the first appearance of Batman and the first appearance of Superman for cheaper than you'd buy for one page of one of them. Um, but it turns out that they were reprints. Uh, I believe in the 70s they had reprints called famous first editions. These were tabloid-sized editions, and usually had the trade dress just being a little bit different. They had using gold or silver letters on top of the book, famous first editions, and a smaller version of the cover inset on the cover. But that's only on the front page. On the second page on there, it had like the original cover, and if you took the original page off, people got confused, even though it wasn't the same size as a Golden Age comic book. Um, that is actually the first appearance of Superman. This first appearance of Superman wasn't tabloid size, I don't believe. I think it was like typical Golden Age size, because it's a little bit bigger than comics are today. But it wasn't as big as the tabloid one, which are about the size of two comic books stacked on top of one another, flat. Um, so this is what the person was buying instead of the actual Action Comics #1 and Detective Comics #1. Um, you don't want to be that person. Uh, Because a lot of people are looked at it with like, Bri was kind of like poking fun at the guy, like, you have to do your due diligence, you have to do this. How can you do this? How can anybody who watches my show probably didn't do this because they know better. They should know better because like the comic book was the same size as other um, tabloid size um, uh, books that they had there. I think they had the Close Encounters of the Third Kind movie adaptation, and maybe some Star Wars books, and they're all the same size. And any comic book collector worth their salt would know that those were not the size of Golden Age comic books, and that more than likely these two are reprints from the famous first edition line. Um, so he was out $5,000. Goodwill was in $5,000 more than they expected to get, and at least only one of the parties was happy. Um, just keep in mind, it's like especially for big keys, important keys like the first appearance of Wolverine, first appearance of Superman, first appearance of Batman, um, first appearance of Swamp Thing. There's a lot of characters that have been so important. They have numerous reprints to keep their stories in the hands of collectors and readers that might want to know about them. Um, and not all of them have the same value. So be forewarned and be forearmed if you're going out looking for somebody for one of your significant others. They might be kind of you might the money you save might be your own, and you might not keep from being swindled. Um, I think we're going to call it there. I want to thank you very much for hanging out with us. If you have any more questions about reprints and how to tell them apart and why people might do them or whatever, just give me a call in the not a call. You don't have my phone number. How do you have my phone number? Kidding. Give me a comment. I mean, we'll discuss it there. And if I don't know it, maybe somebody else could. Um, if you like this, hit the like button. Hit the subscribe, because this is a part of an ongoing series that have been going on for quite a number of weeks already, and probably go on for quite a number more. As long as I can keep on thinking of ideas that people novices might need to know. Um, and you could keep up with this all you want. If you want to, you're just getting into comic books, or you want to actually help your boyfriend, girlfriend, father, mother, son, daughter in building up the collections and take an interest in their hobby. I'm doing this to help all you guys out. So yeah, I could do that there. And if you also have, again, use the comments again if you have like a question that you as a novice were always wondering about that I haven't covered already. Put it in there, and I'll try to cover it in future episodes. Um, on that note, I will say arrivederci, and I will say keep on collecting.